card that we all signed for you.
Oh.
Put that on this side, not covering your face. Tuck it back here.
Oh my God.
I know. And then there's another there it goes. This lake too from Marie. Marie, do you want to give the lake?
From everybody.
From everybody. From everybody.
Lake Cliff.
Lake Cliff.
Let's get laid.
At some point, I think we're gonna learn speech, right?
Not yet. Oh, not yet?
Well, we've got a new protocol, however we're doing this.
Yes.
Let me,
Hawaiian tradition, we have to end with an ukulele mele, so we're going to sing for you. So VIS family, come and join me, please. I'm not doing this alone. I taught elementary school for way too long, so sorry it comes out. Jasmine said, you're such a teacher. That's is joining us. Come on, come on. A little dance.
We have our lyrics here. Okay,
Are
just
you
us.
ready? Hey, I have to be able to see it too.
Okay.
We'd like to say to you, many thanks for all you do. You taught us about the stars, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. Though it's time for our goodbyes, you'll always be a twinkle in our eyes. You'll always be a twinkle in our eyes.
Okay. Cliff, you want to give him your speech?
okay, if we can get all this stuff. Yeah. Get all this stuff. Should I stand up or what?
It's your retirement.
Okay, I'll try to make this short. One of the gifts I have is called the gift of gab. I am a career sailor, right? Probably 2,000 years of sailors in my family, maybe more. I hail from Massachusetts. I was born in Salem Hospital. I'm a Mayflower brat. You all know what that means, right? In case you don't know what that means, it means that my ancestors came on the Mayflower. I have other nefarious claims to fame like 1692, House of Gables, all this Massachusetts history, the good, the bad, and the extremely ugly. I understand the mind of Stephen King. I try not to go there. This is all code for people on the East Coast. So I want to say several things here. This, as you probably know, there are very few things in modern talk, and actually the human race is guilty of this anyways. It doesn't start in modern times. We tend to exaggerate. We tend to say little white lies, some big lies, all the rest. So it's very difficult to be accurate, but anyways, it's not propaganda when they say it's actually the best site on the planet for astronomy. Really. And I have to say that I did a big hallelujah when we finally got the PMT approved. Now, I tend to be Indian rights and Hawaiian rights, and I used to work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, used to be environmental, all of this kind of stuff. So I was a little conflicted about the mountain, but I have great hopes that we're going to do it right. So this site, one of the things that I love about this place Is anybody that I don't know how many of you here are local, how many have come to visit here, but you know one thing about Hawaii is there are very few free things in the state. And up to the present, this place has been free. But I'm gonna give a plug. We appreciate donations because every telescope out there other than mine was bought by the donation box. Now, I have considered this a tremendous privilege to work up here, be involved up here. My dream was to work at the top of the mountain, and for a little while I got to work at the NASA telescope and play astronomer. This was huge. I have great love for this place. I'm very enthusiastic about astronomy. I'm enthusiastic because we tend to be so narrow, our lives tend to be so short that we don't really get the big picture. But I want to tell you something about sailing. If you are a sailor, I mean a real sailor, you get some broad views. You get to be out in nature, you get to see things you're not in control of. And then when you get away from city lights, you see the sky. And the sky turns you on to eternity. It turns you on to things above our little present concerns. And I get in a rapturous state when I look at stars. My daughter gets into it when she surfs great waves. My mother got into it when she played piano. Everybody has a way to get into the cosmos. I have a number of ways, but one of the biggest ways for me is looking at stars. And I've been privileged to go all over the planet, paid for by the Navy and the Merchant Marine. I couldn't afford it otherwise. My dad was a poor school teacher, very bright. School teachers do not make much money. I won't go on that one. I kind of got a thing about that. Anyways, somehow, at the age of 5, and I am 77, believe it or not, I'm going to tell you an amazing thing about America. Way back in 1946, you could be 10 miles from Boston, and in the summer, you could see the brighter part of the Milky Way in Lynn, Massachusetts. No kidding. Well, forget it. You gotta go far places. But this place here is the highest place with the best observing for the public in the world. And when I first started volunteering up here, we had less than 100 people a month. And we were open for 3 days. They had no volunteer program. They had 1 employee. And they allowed me to bring the first big telescope up here. And then we had an event called Shoemaker Levy 9. Does anybody here remember that comet impact on Jupiter? Yes. That month, we went from 100 to 2,000 people in 2 weeks. And what supported it was the amateur astronomers like myself. And that was the real initiation here. And then in '98, we started the volunteer program. And we have had thousands of people. For a number of years, we had over 250,000 visitors a year here. And for a long time, we were 7 nights a week. So you are at one of the most primo sites. And then the other dream I had, which is that telescope that's out there, was having a very good telescope at the best site in the world. And then the final thing I will say is there is actually a little town on this island that's almost as dark with the pollution light control as here, and my house is there and the other telescope. And basically, the reason I'm on this here is because of Monica. So, this is fabulous, folks.
Let's go Stars.
And we hope that it will stay free. And I really appreciate this. This touches me deeply. And we're happy you're all here. And we're gonna do some really great observing. And we've got my electronics working finally. And we're gonna look at stuff with this incredible telescope. And then I wanna do one more pitch. If you're interested, my friend and I do a program on Night Skies Network. It's called the Cliff and Dawn Show. Actually, it's the Dawn and Cliff Show. And all you have to do is get on your computer. We try to do this every Monday. That depends on weather. So, thank you.
I just want to say a few words. This will be kept short. I'm Don, and I'm Cliff's friend, and I've had the rare opportunity to work with Cliff the last 4 years. We do a live view show. We did it here for 4 years. It was a lot of fun. I'm more technically inclined, so I handle all the equipment. I get all the images. Cliff knows so much more about the night sky, but I've learned so much from him over these 4 years. It's been a pleasure and an honor working with you, Cliff, and I know we'll be doing our own things away from the VIS as in the future. But I do want to correct one thing. He did actually come over on the Mayflower.
Well, the other name I have is the Old Man of the Mountain because I first got up here in 1976. And they only had a quarter mile. The last quarter mile of this highway was paved. It wasn't until a number of years later, what happened is the dust got so much that they had to recoat the mirrors every year. So the telescopes went to the university, and the university okayed it. That is the university, paid the money to pave the road another 5 miles down to the 12,000 foot level. So now you can go 5, sometimes 10 years. And my hope is that when the TMT comes here, this will be paved all the way.
So are you gonna show us some neat things in your telescope?
Yeah, we should have M8 in there now, and then we're gonna do Saturn, which is incredible.
Wow.
Yes.
This is a 24-inch scope, and tell them about the mirror. It's a special mirror. Is that
Yeah, this
Budo
is
mirror?
one of the best mirrors in the United States of America. It's made by one of the top mirror makers in the country. His name is Zambudo. These mirrors are very expensive. They have a figure. They go in wavelengths to figure your telescope, what the wavelength is. If you've got something that's a quarter wavelength, it's called diffraction limited. But it is a little better if you get better than that. This might be a 16th wave, which is insane. The other thing about it is the faster it is, the focal ratio, the brighter extended objects tend to be, and the wider the field of view. So usually if you have a really big telescope, you have a very narrow field of view, especially if it's a refractor. But with an F4, 24-inch, I've got over a degree of field, which is insane. And the thing is bright. And then the other little thing is I like toys. And I was in the military, it's called the Navy, yes. And we have a little special SEAL Team 6 image intensifier tube, which when I put it on my 24, it thinks it's a 200-inch telescope. Which means you can take your camera, your cell phone, and you can take deep sky pictures. And this is what we were doing with our monitors and stuff.
So, once again, click Livermore.
Yay.
Please join me and have the cliff cake. I want to take a picture of you.
Cake is so good.
Just a minute.
That's the stain on it.
Yay, Cliff! Woo! Anybody who didn't get cake,
totally
come over here
violating
at the
my-
cake table. We'll hook you up.
Nice to meet you.